Hi everyone, my name is Haga Laszlo, and today I will be talking about gender, sex, and discuss how they are portrayed in the media platform. So the first slide shows a couple of vintage and new advertisements of beauty, what media presents as attractive or pretty, as we can see in this picture. What we consider masculine, such as playing sports or like being an athlete, being muscular, and also gender roles, which can be viewed at this picture. How a woman is cleaning and taking care of a child while the man is not expected to take care of household chores. And we can also view how sex and gender is a two distinct idea. So now I'm going to continue with a quote by Judith Butler. So she said the distinction between sex and gender serves the argument that whatever biological intractability sex appears to have, gender is culturally constructed. Hence, gender is neither the casual result of sex nor as seemingly fixed as sex. Referring to Judith Butler's idea, in other words, sex refers to the categories distinguished by biological characteristics, and gender refers to the way a society perceives, evaluates, and expects males and females to behave. Let's examine this picture on the right side, the gender bent person. So, the gender bent person on the right side is a great example to see and distinguish our gender identity, how we think about ourselves, from gender expression, how we demonstrate our gender, biological sex, objectively measurable organs, hormones, and chromosomes, and sexual orientation, which is who we are physically, spiritually, and emotionally attracted to. Gender and society. The quote stated by Judith Butler can be tied into Anne Fausto Sterling ideas presented. For instance, Fausto Sterling stated, "A body's sex is simply too complex. There is no either or. Rather, there are shades of difference." The author further noted that labeling someone as a man or a woman is a social decision. Sex is different from gender and it should be distinguished. For instance, sex is a physical and biological underpinning of someone. On the other hand, gender is the psychological transformation of an individual, the internal conviction of being a male or female, and behavioral expression that follows it. As the author described, sex is distinct from gender because social institutions designed to create gender inequality produce most of the differences between men and women. There has been a long debate about whether male and female differences in cognitive functions and behavior could result or be due to sex differences. In other words, there has been a debate about whether sex versus gender affects intelligence and behavior among the two categories, female and male. However, it has been noted and accepted that human bodies are too complex to give a clear cut answer about sexual differences. In fact, the more we analyze the differences based on sex and gender, the more it can be understood that sex is not pure physical category. With that being said, according to feminist theorists, the body is created socially and culturally in order to be able to categorize people and keep inequality between the two sexes. Gender and Society, Masculinities. As it was learned, Francesco Maria Moratini called for attention about the different behaviors that are associated and leads to dominance that creates inequalities between gender. However, in order to examine and discuss behaviors and characteristics that lead to the oppression of the other, hegemonic masculinity should be defined. The term hegemonic simply means ruling or dominant in either political or social context. Therefore, hegemonic masculinity refers to the societal pattern in which stereotypically male traits are idolized as the masculine central ideal, explaining how and why men maintain dominant social roles over women and other groups considered to be feminine. Hegemonic masculinity creates a gender hierarchy that gives power and dominance to men over women and men among themselves, where each member is expected to act according to his/her social status. The term hegemonic masculinity is dominant when men are also heterosexual, that is constructed in relation to women, and is connected to the institution of marriage. As the author described, any man that aspires to embody this masculinity must display aggressive and violent behavior whilst restraining the flow of vulnerable emotions. Men are also expected to show strength, toughness, and be competitive and successful. Most importantly, a dominant man should be heterosexual since anyone who shows signs of feminine characteristics is automatically being placed on the lower social ladder and as a consequence will be oppressed by the masculine man. The author further notes that such dominant masculinity that has been described does not exist, although men strive to achieve it. As it was stated by Harris, the traditional pathway to masculine identity development is limited in its applicability to African American men. As Harris explained, African American men experience pressure to meet European American standards of manhood as provider, protector, and disciplinarian, inequities and earning potential and employment and limited access to educational opportunities, feelings of powerlessness, guilt, and shame. In return, African American youths have redefined masculinity to emphasize sexual promiscuity, toughness, thrill seeking, and use of violence in interpersonal interactions. As it was explained by Harris, white masculine ideals are often unachievable from African American men, which is due to the material constraints of race. Therefore, many African American are forced to prove their masculinity differing from the accumulation of wealth, status, and power. Instead, many of them are characterized as either tough guy and or player of woman. According to Harper's findings, based on the expression of masculinity among African American males, many of these men had an active pursuit of dating opportunities and attention from the opposite sex, and many of them spent significant amount of time in the gym working out and enhancing their physiques. Another finding suggested that competition influenced many of their peers' perceptions of masculinity, specifically defeating opponents at video games and on the basketball court. Referring to Harris' findings and examining the advertisement from my Instagram page on the right side, the audience can make several connections between the two. For instance, referring to the ideas of Harris of African American men redefining masculinity, many of these men spend a lot of time at the gym, working out and spending lots of time being preoccupied with their physique. As Harris further noted, media and commercial images, like the one on the right side, overwhelmingly depict, popularize, and celebrate certain types of African American men, namely pimps, rappers, and athletes who are surrounded by attractive women. As a result, young African American boys are socialized to believe that these behaviors are in fact indicative of black masculinity and success. When we look at the advertisement on the right, we can refer to the ideas presented by Harris and understand that African American men are manipulated and socially influenced to redefine their own masculinity in a white supremacy society where being an athlete and having a muscular physique is one of the key components of being masculine. If African American boys and men do not follow the social influences and expectations towards them, such as becoming athletes, rappers, being a tough guy, or players, they, automat- they automatically become victimized. So at this part, I'm gonna just refer to Brown Miller, who quoted, "The world smiles favorably on the feminine woman." Now I'm gonna talk about gender and society femininities. As Duke and Crashel stated, the girls are actively engaged in making means through their everyday interactions with text interactions that occur in the larger context of their lived experience. The use of social media, TV, magazines, and other media platforms show what is viewed as feminine in our society, such as behavior, thinking, roles, body types, and beauty ideals that has a great effect on girls growing in our culture. As it was noted by the others, social media and other media platforms present clear and coherent messages about what it means to be young American female. The messages appear to be ideological, and most researchers have assumed an ideological impact. Moreover, feminist scholars share a concern that patriarchally prescribed images of female perfection might condition women and girls to be overly self conscious and self critical of their appearance. Furthermore, psychologists such as Erickson and Brown and Gilligan identified adolescence as a time of uncertainty and wavering confidence when girls looked increasingly to the social environment for cues to support their vulnerable self identities. Brown and Gilligan also noted that girls would stop knowing what they knew and look to outside authorities to provide them with the truth. So when I was collecting ads from my social media platform, I mainly use Instagram and Facebook, and these are a couple of the pictures that I saved. Um, I have image number one that shows a white woman with blonde hair for an American Eagle ad. Then we have the second image, who shows a famous actress promoting a foundation or like a cover up cream. The third image shows a young woman advertising for this brand, Sexy Mix Global. You can kind of tell that the advertisement shows a lot of the woman's body. And then the image four shows an ad of a Victoria's Secret model in her lingerie. So, gender and society femininities. As Duke and Crushell noted, in the United States, the feminine role traditionally has four dimensions, which are adherence to cultural fashion and beauty standards, performance of family and domestic skills, satisfaction of the needs of others, and the acquisition of male attention. As it was further noted, a woman must continually watch herself. She has to survey she is and does because how she appears to others, and ultimately how she appears to men, is of crucial importance for what is normally thought of as a success of her life. Referring to the advertisements presented in the previous slide, we can make several connections of the effects of media platforms on girls and young women. For instance, image 1 portrays a young white blonde hair model posing for the American Eagle ad. In our white supremacy society, most advertisements present white models to girls and women all around the world, portraying that being white is what considered beautiful in beauty standards. Image 2 portrays a famous actress, Lana T. Condor, whom many young girls look up to. The purpose of the advertisement is to use a famous female figure that many girls and young women follow in order to manipulate them to use the beauty product presented by the celebrity. The image also portrays a message of using foundation or cover up cream in order to cover imperfections of the face and body. In other words, according to the beauty standards, society expects to cover up any blemishes or scars by using beauty products in order to be perceived as pretty and attractive for men. In image 3 and 4, advertises women's athlete outfits and lingerie for the famous Victoria's Secret showing close up images of young woman's body. The audience can be influenced by this image by thinking that being skinny, having a curvy butt and breasts, and having long legs is what perceived as attractive in the patriarchally prescribed images of female perfection. As it was described by Duke and Rochelle, the disciplinary power that inscribes femininity in the female body is everywhere and it is nowhere. The disciplinarian is everyone and yet no one in particular. Therefore, it can be concluded that expectations towards women based on patriarchal prescription is social construct where all members participate, experience, and behave in accordance of these gender norms. And just to finish this presentation, I just want to ask everyone to think about the question: what societal changes should be made to reduce societal expectations towards men and women? And how should we start practicing these changes? Thank you very much for listening.